In this interview, I talked to Richard Patey. We get into website investing. That's a thing that Richard's an expert in. In fact, we talk about several things that you should look at if you're looking to buy a website, a little bit of due diligence that you could perform on your own. Additionally, he gives us several tips for what you could do to improve and grow a website after you purchased it. Or the great part is if you have a website and you want to grow the traffic or the earnings, you could use the same exact tips. So Richard has a free newsletter that is very interesting. It sort of covers the industry that we're in, affiliate websites, investing, and he covers a suite of things have been featured on there a couple times. So thanks, Richard, for that. And I encourage people to go check it out. We talk quite a bit about his newsletter and just the business model that he's adopting here. I was completely not familiar with it, but it sounds extremely interesting. In fact, I was so interested, I just kept asking more and more questions before we wrangled it back into website investing. So thanks, Richard, for taking the time. Everyone definitely check out his newsletter over at, actually the link is in the description. All right, I'm not going to try and remember it. The link's in the description, so do check it out. Without further ado, let's get to the interview. Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here, and I'm with my friend Richard Patey. Welcome, Richard. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Doug.
Of course. And we've actually known each other for a few years, but we haven't caught up in a while. So it's good to, hear your voice and see you live here. For the people that don't know you, can you give us a little bit of an intro?
Yeah, sure. I've been doing this online entrepreneurship thing for about 10 years. You want to go right from the beginning or what I'm currently doing?
Let's hear what you're currently doing, and then we'll definitely unpack how you got into this industry.
All right. So the main thing that I'm focused on is a new publication about website investing. And it's a weekly email, it's a weekly podcast, and it's got some additional features for paying subscribers. And that's now my full-time focus, which is going well. I'm enjoying that. But previously, I've been building and selling content sites and a lot of other things previously as well. But the one constant that I'm doing right now is everything that I'm doing is within the space of website investing.
Very cool. And I'm very curious about this stuff you're working on now, since it's a different approach than a lot of people are taking right now. But we'll get to that later, because I am curious how you initially got into websites and working online in general 10 years ago.
Sure. Sounds good.
Yeah, so go for it. Tell how did you get in there? Yeah.
How did I get into it? It was more, I was working a job and I didn't want to be doing that anymore. I was turning 30 and I was just thinking, what am I doing with my life? I was working in the charity sector and I wanted to start making money. I didn't feel like I was having an impact. So I turned 30, freaked out, quit my job, set up a company, not knowing anything in terms of what I was doing. Never really made, in fact, I don't think maybe I was doing a tiny bit of like consultancy on the side at that point, but had never made any money online. But end of 2009, quit my job, had a company, and just been trying to figure it out since. So the things I started doing at the beginning were WordPress websites, bit of graphic design, but then I quickly went into SEO when I started learning that and realizing how valuable that was as a skill set, started offering that to clients. And so the first 3 years of my journey was doing client work and got to a point where I was making enough money doing that, but realized me and clients are not a good fit. I didn't enjoy that. I don't like having clients. And so sold the clients to another agency and went off traveling for a bit, wrote a book about that kind of first 3-year journey, which I saw that you recently had Dan Andrews from Tropical MBA that you were talking with. And I hadn't realized that, because he has a concept of the first 100 days. And I hadn't actually realized that actually applied to me. I thought, because I've been going like 10 years, that's a lot more days than 1,000 days. But looking back, and I just kind of recently updated my about page, I hadn't realized that in that first 3 years, I had actually replaced my income. But it's just that I also chose to sell that income and move on into something else. I wanted to move into products. I'd had enough for clients. And then started working on my own projects. The first one was, I read the 4-Hour Work Week around that time, 2012, 13. and wanted to try and create a muse. And so I did that through a dropship. Well, I tried to create a muse for a dropship store on Shopify. It was selling panorama prints that people took on their iPhone. Got that to about maybe like $1,500 a month. I kind of maxed out the keywords and the search traffic and everything I could do with my skill set at the time. Ended up selling that on Empire Flippers, and that was the first time that I realized that I could build and sell assets. And so that kind of flipped the way that I was thinking. And then I started thinking, well, what other kind of businesses and assets can I create? What am I best at? What do I enjoy? What I not want to be doing going forward? So just like I didn't like having clients, I also didn't like having customers and dealing with customer support and suppliers and all this kind of stuff. So I realized that the thing that I think I'm best at is content and ranking and getting traffic. And affiliate marketing was just a very natural fit for me because I had the least variables. You didn't have to speak or deal with any customer support. So started getting into content sites, built one around a software product around funnels. 2017 ended up selling that. The investor that bought it wanted to keep me on, and we set up a partnership where I would keep operating it and building it up, and then we flipped it a year later, doubled the asset price, and got a low six-figure exit with that. And then thought, okay, that experience was cool. I started working with investors, realized that I had the ability to work with other people with money as the operator. This is ending up quite a long story. And then started offering my services as a website operator, as a content site operator to other investors. Ended up operating a bunch of other websites, realized that wasn't a good fit for me either. So just like I kind of wanted to move away from client relations and then customer support and suppliers, I also kind of wanted to move away from investor relations. And then started creating media products like a Facebook group, a podcast, flipping websites. Ended up selling that to Alpha Investors, Andre, in 2019, which is the hat that I'm wearing. And then 2020, I've created a new publication on a platform called Substack. And it's a free newsletter and then premium features for paying customers. I do a deals email every week where I find the best content site deals across the market. And I just launched a new podcast a couple of weeks ago. But this has all now come together and in a way where it's a very natural fit. Like I feel like I'm best at creating content, writing and audio, monetizing it, and like having subscription monetization as well as advertising it is a really natural fit for me. It's going very well. I can see it scaling much bigger and to the point where I make other people involved as writers. And it kind of feels like the place that I always should have ended up in or got to sooner. But yeah, that's a long answer.
That's good. There's so many layers, and you started in drop shipping, you picked up a few skills here, and then you grew and you pivoted and you kind of have grown with the market and kept sort of trading up. And I think it's interesting you mentioned the 1,000-day rule, and right about 3 years, like it kind of holds up. Maybe there's some survivorship bias, but a lot of people that you talk to, 2 to 3 years, maybe a little bit more, depending on how much they focus. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. Now, you have been in the industry of sort of flipping things, and you mentioned a couple of the triggers were really about working with customers or clients. And I think you and I are similar in that way. It's great when you have a good client, but there's really a pretty low percentage of great clients. Some of them are average and some of them are kind of a real headache to deal with. So
yeah,
I can imagine that you were operating some websites and you thought, well, this is a little different. This is perhaps a higher end type customer. It's an investor. They have money. But I guess what kind of stories do you have about working with clients or customers? Sure. Even from the beginning, because I know you don't want to throw anyone under the bus that you've worked with in the last couple of years. It's a small industry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever had a truly enjoyable, time working for a client, which makes me think that maybe the problem was me and not the client. So I mean, like I am the one constant. So it's just not a natural fit for me. And yeah, I mean, anyone working in service businesses has had interesting stories with clients. Working with investors, it's a different type of relationship. What I didn't like was the responsibility of, maintaining their websites. Feels like the Google updates recently are a lot more harsh. I wasn't really able to sleep well at night thinking, okay, am I going to wake up in the morning and traffic is tanked 40% or started to dip after a Google update? And am I going to have some angry people, blaming me for losing their capital? So, some people, that's a very natural business for them to go into. I know Dom at OnFolio is doing exactly that. And that's great, but it wasn't for me. But publishing is, and having paid subscribers is just a really great fit. And I just need to focus on adding the most value to free and paid subscribers. And I can set that up in a way that, in terms of the relationship, how I want it. And I can, manage the access to me in the best way that I have in terms of previous businesses. And so this is a much better place for me.
Indeed. Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned, Dom, who was on the show recently, I don't know if I could handle the stress of having like other people's money and they're relying on me to protect it, and not just protect it, but to grow it. And you're dealing with basically Google updates where we don't really know exactly what the trigger is. It's some sort of holistic, like all-encompassing thing that they're looking at. Probably, I don't know, but it's really hard to determine the issue and then fix it. There's like too many issues, or it's just a mystery. So I don't know how he sleeps, but it seems like he's doing a great job with it.
Dom hires really well. So, he always builds a team that will have a lot of the responsibility. But yeah, for me, I was the operator. And, once you get hit by a Google update, that doesn't mean that you can recover. It doesn't mean that you've done something wrong, or you're not doing something that competitors are doing that were not affected or that benefited. Sometimes you just can't get a site back. And, you may not even be able to explain that properly to some investors if they're new. And so, yeah, I could just see the downside risk of me doing that, and it wasn't a business that I wanted to do going forward. Yeah.
Moving forward into the recession that we're in, I think we can call it a recession since it's like 2 quarters of declining, economy. What have you seen, just the word on the street with this, as far as investing and money in the market, money coming out of the market, and that sort of thing?
I think that, the buyer demand has reduced slightly. People are more wary of pulling the trigger on bigger deals. I think that there is more supply coming through in terms of people listing their deals, but the prices are not dropping yet. People are not feeling the crunch yet. Like, a question that I've been wondering is, like, how many site builders do you think do this on the side and have a full-time job as well? I would think likely probably more, 50% or more, something around that. And so, in the UK, we have government support. We have furlough schemes, which is a word that I never knew previously. We have this around the world. And so whilst people are being supported and businesses are not going under, I think people are assuming that, maybe this coronavirus is just a blip. But I'm seeing it as a very big global impact. And yeah, like you say, I guess, we're into the second quarter of a recession now, depending on how you count it. But this has the potential to be huge. This has the potential to be a prolonged depression. And so I think that once the government support goes for propping up people's salaries and people start, really feeling a hit with their incomes, people are going to have to start liquidating assets and converting assets into cash. And so I think websites are no different. And I think that people are going to be having to sell their websites at some point and accepting lower multiples. I think the multiples are going to drop significantly over the next 3 to 6 months. And it would already be a buyer's market if sellers were not feeling pain yet. Mm-hmm. So I think the pain is about to come. If you are wanting to sell your website or having to sell your website, I think it's going to be at far lower multiples that we were used to seeing, like 2017, 2018, it was all sub 30x. It's only, 2019 and the start of this year was the highest it's ever been, where, previously you would never think about a multiple starting with a 4. But, 40x plus, we're starting to see that. So I think that's going to disappear for quite some time. And I think we could easily see sub 30 being the new norm, where, end of last year, start of this year, 34, 36 was pretty common. which with, I don't think it's been more core Google updates, but I think their impact has been more heavy. And so I don't really understand how you could pay more than 2 to 2.5 years of profit in the future when it's so uncertain. So, yeah, that's my take.
I agree 100% with especially the last statement there, where I was really surprised at some of the multiples and some of the prices. Now, some websites have a little bit more of a diverse traffic source. Maybe they have a few sources. Maybe they have more Pinterest coming in, and then maybe they have a few other sort of revenue streams too. So there's some sites like that. But I was seeing kind of like what you're saying. It's just people were paying a whole lot, and really we can kind of rely that there's at least going to be a couple or more core Google updates, and it's a crapshoot. I mean, we have no idea what's going to happen, and I've seen sites drop and then come back higher than they were and then drop again. And when you look at some of the analytics and the data that you can get out there from like Ahrefs, for example, it's pretty surprising. So yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I've been hearing people say that at the moment, Ahrefs data in terms of search traffic and the search graph may not be as accurate as it was previously. I have no idea. But so every week I look through all the content site listings across the marketplace on Flipper, on Empire Flippers, on Investors Club. And, last Wednesday, 80% plus of the deals that I looked up in Ahrefs were very badly hit by the May 4th update, like significantly, massive drop showing in Ahrefs. And so I can't recommend something if I have a graph saying that it's dropping. I need to wait to see what happens, what's reported on in May before I can recommend a site. So there's very few sites to recommend, but an 80% of every site that I looked up appears to have dropped, which is bizarre and makes me wonder where that traffic is going. Is it going to the far bigger publications? That's something I need to look into. But this update seems to have been just as bad as November 8th, which crushed some sites. So these updates, like they're having much bigger effects. And it does feel like a crapshoot to me. It does feel like there's so much, I don't know, luck. It's an algorithm, it's programmed to do something, but I don't know why some sites get hit and others don't. So, and that feels like the new normal. Whereas previously you could kind of assume that sites would maintain and do okay over the years, but I don't think you can assume that anymore.
Right.
At least on the lower end.
Indeed. Well, just to dig into the weeds a little bit with Ahrefs, I know a few of my sites, it looked like it was a very dramatic drop, like in November and then in May. However, it was much more muted in terms of like real traffic. So it looked like traffic dropped by 40%, but it really only dropped by like 12. So yeah. Just the way the data is interpreted, who knows how the algorithm works on the Ahrefs side, but
yeah, I mean, do they then go back and update their data and make it more accurate over time? Because I'm having a look at some sites that I remember got destroyed by the November 8th and still looking like they got destroyed. It's hard when you're doing due diligence and an update has just happened and you're looking to acquire, or you're in the process, or maybe you've sent your money into escrow and you're in the inspection period, and Google Analytics is looking okay, but Ahrefs is showing a big drop. I don't know. That would freak me out a little bit.
Yeah. And when you look at the Ahrefs organic traffic estimation, I guess, where does that stand as far as the real traffic? Usually I see it to be, something like half or maybe a little bit less of the actual traffic. So is that kind of what you see, or is it a little different?
Yeah, I think I would assume 50 to 100% more search traffic based on Ahrefs. Sometimes it can be accurate, but somewhere between 50 and 100% more feels a good amount from what Ahrefs is saying to actually the search traffic a site is getting. Yeah.
Okay. And let's sort of shift. I mean, we're kind of already talking about it anyway, but I get a lot of inquiries. People actually want me to do what you used to do and manage sites, maybe perform due diligence and take on that role of of an advisor. And I don't want to work with clients, so I never did it. But for people that are looking for sites, what are a few tips that you can give them? It sounds like, check out Ahrefs and see the trending data that's coming in. What are a few other areas people should definitely look at?
For investors wanting to get into the space to buy a site and have it managed by someone else, or
just to buy a site, potentially manage themselves,
Yep.
or to have someone else manage.
Yep. I mean, yeah, the search traffic trend is an important one, and you always need to get access to Google Analytics read-only access and actually see what the true data is. But in terms of looking up a site initially in Ahrefs, and a tool such as Ahrefs, then the trend of the search traffic, and more importantly, if you know that there's been a Google update, does the site look to have been affected negatively by it? So Ahrefs is not, as we mentioned, 100% accurate, but that would be a big, orange flag at least for me to be very wary and make sure that traffic and revenue is going to be there over the next month. So look out for Google updates and whether the site that you're looking to acquire has been hit and will be badly hit going forward. And if a site is trending down, then it's often better to wait for it to stop dropping and to bottom out before you look to acquire, because you don't know where that's going to end. And you can run into some problems if you think that you've caught the knife and you've done well, but it can continue to drop afterwards. So I personally wouldn't buy a site that has been hit by an update and is continuing to drop. I would wait for that to bottom out for a good month and then price at that new level. Other than that, the kind of the more obvious ones is how traffic is distributed and spread out across the pages. You don't really want to buy a site that has the number one page greater than 30-40% of all search traffic, because you're too dependent on that one page. So you want to see how dependent the site is in terms of the top 10 pages. Also for the top keywords, are there a handful of keywords that the site is dependent on for the majority of its traffic? So you just want to make sure that organic keywords are well spread, that the search traffic is well spread across the pages. And then in terms of backlinks, you want to make sure that things are not overly optimized in terms of anchor text and whether the site looks natural compared to the competitors in that space. And then you can then make an assessment of can you bring the level, the skills required or the level of investment to correct that, or do you want to just only buy a clean site?
Gotcha.
And a safer site. And then in terms of upside, there's a lot of things that you can look at, and I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah.
And yeah, you could just launch right into some of those, key things that you can implement, hopefully on the early side after you acquire a site.
Sure. So yeah, I mean there's a number of upside things. I mean the quickest ones is if you can make optimizations to revenue and conversion rates. So if you see a site that doesn't have good conversion rate elements, if it lacks a featured product table above the fold, or if it has a table that doesn't scale well on mobile, and people on mobile can't see the buttons or can't click through to Amazon if it's an Amazon site, then you can fix that. You can increase the conversion rate and you can increase revenue. That will increase the asset price, and then that's a very quick win that will increase your revenue and give you the ability to flip the site going forward if you want to do that. So conversion rate is the quickest one. With search traffic, if you buy a site that doesn't have a great backlink profile, if it doesn't have particularly high domain rating, but it has a lot of keywords that are ranking on page 2 or page 3, maybe you could do some link building to those inner pages, boost those up, get them to page 1. That could have a big impact on search traffic. If it's a huge site that has hundreds, if not thousands of pages, or it's really bloated the Google index with a lot of stuff that shouldn't be in there, like tags, maybe some categories, author, site maps. There was a bug with Yoast a couple of years ago that put all the images in the Google index. You can still see sites that have that haven't corrected it. So getting rid of stuff that shouldn't be in the Google index you can get some great upside there. Also, if you're buying a site that has 1,000 pages, but maybe only the top 50, bring in 90% of search traffic, then you can do a lot of pruning and maybe even reduce, 2/3 of all the content in the Google index, delete those pages, If they have good content, you could then repurpose it, add it to an existing page, consolidate. If any of those pages have links, you can redirect them to pages that are doing better. And I've seen some case studies where you can double search traffic by deleting and pruning a lot of content. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do to get upside. You want to buy a site that is already solid at a good price, where the upside is like a bonus. The upside that you can bring is a bonus. So you don't really want to price on the fact that you can deliver upside, because it's never guaranteed, and also during that time the site could lose traffic. So you want to make sure that you can really get ahead by actually benefiting from the upside that you can deliver. Yeah.
Awesome. That'll be a great highlight clip on YouTube. So that was so actionable. It's like a flow chart. You buy a site, or even if you have your own site and you're like, what should I be working on? There's probably, 7 things you just mentioned where, you should be able to find 2 or 3 for almost any site out there. So very awesome.
Good, thanks. I've just found a couple of others. Like I've got like SOPs that I have within the publication. It's for paying subscribers. So like keyword cannibalization is a good one if you can reduce that. That plays in with the content audit, like reducing the number of pages. If you can combine 2 pages that are competing with each other, you can get a big boost, especially if they're on page 2 competing. You can get them to page 1. And also like stealing people's featured snippets is a good one too. You can get quite a bit of upside there, and you can do some fun stuff with that. But I think that's pretty much, and also like like tools like Surfer SEO for optimizing on page. If the content you're buying with the site is not perfectly optimized yet in terms of keyword density and LSI keywords, then you can just quickly run content through a tool like Surfer. Just actually follow what it says, add or reduce the number of terms, and perfectly optimize it, and you'll get upside there. So, but I think that's pretty much the 80-20 of that. Yeah.
Awesome. And just a simple thing, I bought a site earlier this year, pretty small. That's kind of what I aim for. And the grammar was terrible. So I just went through with Grammarly, maybe tweaked, I don't know, a couple of the titles here and there, a couple of the subheadings, and there was a definite lift in just weeks. I mean, it was amazing because on-page changes just happen so fast. The impact shows so quick in the rankings and in the traffic in general.
Just by improving the grammar?
Yeah. I mean, I lumped in a couple things, but I improved the grammar and tweaked a couple of the subheadings, but no major like audit kind of thing. So
interesting. Do you think that's because Google noticed that and likes to boost sites that have better content, better grammar, or do you think it was more people who landed on the page were appreciating the content more and trusted it more? I hadn't thought about that as a way to increase traffic or rankings, but I know a lot of content producers, they use tools like Hemingway to make sure that their content is at the right level of complexity. But that's interesting. Yeah.
And I think it's probably a combination of the two. And I probably got it in my head a few years ago that the grammar is quite important, but it does, I mean, you'll get better visitor interaction if it's written well. And I mean, there were just some misspelled words, like kind of just poorly written content that I just spruced up a little bit. So, all right. You know what? I may have thrown in some more internal links, but I can't remember if it was already, you could throw out my data. I did like 10 things probably, and I just forgot. So,
yeah, I mean, readability is, I mean, it may not be a ranking factor, but it's definitely, like a person factor for, someone being able to get through your content and consume the content and then, take the action and go to the affiliate link or click an ad, like stay on the page enough to click an ad. So, like readability is definitely something that is very important. You just don't want to just throw up 3,000 words and not have any structure to it. Yeah.
Indeed. So Amazon just changed their commission rate structure in the last month, and there was a lot of buzz, especially in my community. A lot of people were very upset. Some people thought, hey, this is just business. We have to roll with it. So from an investor standpoint and the word on the street with the folks that you hang out with, what's the feeling out there? Are people really freaking out?
I mean, it's great for investors, right? As long as you weren't closing on a deal just as that happened, then you're buying sites with the same level of traffic for a lot less. But for sellers, I mean, it's brutal. But it's given people the motivation to look to find if there are better paying affiliate programs and increase the number of affiliate programs that their site is using, not just having one, which is Amazon. So I've never liked being dependent on Amazon. I moved away from Amazon a couple of years ago. I got, kicked out. I got my account closed a couple of times. So that was frustrating. It's much better to have 10 or 20 different affiliate accounts, which is what you end up if you are building sites that promote software. Each software product has their own affiliate account. It has its own, quirks and features. As Doug, the car guy on YouTube would say, not a different Doug. That guy, Doug Monero, is that his name? Doug DeMero? Big YouTube, big car YouTuber.
I've heard of him, but yeah. I never watched anything, yeah.
So every affiliate software platform will have different metrics that it shows you, will have different ways of promoting, different assets. And I think I've got a huge spreadsheet of, 50 different affiliate programs that are active or I've used over the years in terms of software products. And yeah, I think that makes you a better affiliate marketer when you're promoting from different platforms and different products and not just focused on one aspect. Because there's a way that you convert Amazon, and it's kind of solved. You can hire companies like Convertica to put up the best conversion rate structure for an Amazon associate page, but it's not solved outside of that. If you're running direct e-commerce products elsewhere or software products, I think you have to think a bit more creatively, and at the end of the day, you're just not dependent on one. So I think it's brutal for sellers. I mean, it's super rough, especially with the timing, with the pandemic. But I think it will make people more resilient. And I mean, just depending on Amazon is the most fragile that you could be anyway. So I think in the long run, it's a good thing. But for buyers, I mean, it's a good opportunity, especially if you can bring a skill set and know that you can move away from Amazon and make more money. But that's easier said than done, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I was surprised once I started looking this last time around in the last month at other affiliate programs, and companies want to sell their products. So a lot of times they have a direct affiliate program, or other retailers do too. Amazon's not the only one in town.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, we ended up ordering a lot of stuff not from Amazon because the shipping wasn't any faster and it's a better deal somewhere else. So there was no real reason, a good reason for us to order from Amazon because it was cheaper elsewhere and we can get it shipped faster. So of course, due to the pandemic and some of the shipping issues, but at the same time, it really opened my eyes. And like you said, a lot of people are going to be looking at other revenue streams. And I think you're right. Software is so scalable, and they want to sell their stuff so bad. I probably get an email every single day from someone either wanting to be on this show or the podcast or whatever. Like they want someone to talk about their product. So do you see a lot of that too?
That's interesting. No, I haven't.
Okay.
I mean,
well, you will
there
now.
Could be some sponsorship there for my newsletter. No, I haven't really had too much of that. I mean, I've had some outreach emails saying, we see you have this page. It would be great to include our product on that page. And I've been able to leverage that. I've not been able to sell a placement yet. Obviously, you've got to be careful with the selling links. But I have been able to leverage and say, yeah, sure, if you can create some unique content and then I copy and paste it in the page. That's one of the benefits of having a direct relationship with companies like software companies. You can kind of set your own terms. You can't obviously do that with something like Amazon. So it's just a much stronger position having more affiliate accounts, and you got to diversify. I mean, there's no reason not to add an ad network to your site. You don't have to have it on your main pages, on your main hub pages or landing pages, but you can, at a minimum, if you've got 10,000 sessions a month and you get approved on Ezoic, you're going to be making at least $5 per 1,000 visitors, and typically 10, 15, and 20, and maybe even higher. And you're going to be making at least another like $100 a month minimum just by adding ads. Which, with the speed functionality with Ezoic now, there's no downside with that. I'm running a site on their name servers. I'm getting a page insight score of 99 out of 100 on desktop. So they've made my site faster by running ads on their platform. So you've got to be diversified. If you're wanting to do this for longer term, then I think you have to start thinking and building additional traffic sources. If you're doing it to build up a niche site and to flip after a couple of years, then you don't need to do this. But if you want to hold the assets longer term, you have to build a direct relationship with you have to build an audience. And I've done that with one site, a very small authority site around funnels. I built a pretty big email list. I got over 10,000 email subscribers, and that drove, in some cases, that drove the majority of the revenue. And so, yeah, I think it's time to reconsider all these different aspects and not be dependent on organic search traffic from Google. Obviously, that is the game that we are in. That is what a content site does. But if you can build an email list as well, if you lose your search traffic, at least you're able to generate revenue and figure out how to get that back. Because most Amazon associated sites you see listed in marketplaces, if they lose their search traffic, their revenue goes to zero. So you want to be less fragile, and like having subscribers in whatever form, I think is for me that's the best business model that you can have as a content site owner or a content creator. I think subscribers and potentially paying subscribers is the best model to focus on longer term, or at least to add as additional monetization channel and additional traffic channel as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And are there any sort of keys that you look for in a niche or industry where you think, yes, there can be a community, we can build an email list, people will want to subscribe? Are there any like key aspects that you look for?
I think that you can do this in any niche. I really do. But I think that you need to want to. So you're not going to build an audience and a community yourself as a site operator, as a content site builder, if you don't care about the niche that you're in. It won't happen. So if you want to do this and you want to be more anti-fragile, or trying to achieve the concept of anti-fragile, which is reading Nassim's books since the pandemic, then you should look to try and create an audience that can kind of carry you through bad times. And so like a Google update or like an Amazon update. So I think you can do this in any niche, but you need to care about it. You need to be, into the subject matter. You need to be passionate about it. And so it's not for everyone. I mean, niche sites, affiliate sites, it's not going to go away, and you can just do the keyword research, you can outsource the content, you can outsource the link building and rank a site and flip a site, and that's perfectly viable. But if you are at the two gods of Google or Amazon, if it's Amazon site, Google and Amazon, by doing that. So if you want to be able to sleep easier at night and hold these assets longer term, then building an email list, building an audience, getting return visitors is the way to go. And the platform that I've chosen for this newsletter is called Substack, and it's predominantly for writers and podcasters. But I can see the ability to make a full-time living creating publications like this, and actually not needing any of the technical stuff that comes with WordPress. Everything I'm doing now is on Substack. It's really refreshing. I think that anyone can create a full-time living in any niche doing this now. If you choose to do so, you just need to build up like a free subscriber list, a free email list first. You need to get to 1,000 to 2,000 email subscribers. I think is a good place. And then once people learn about you, value your content, like what you're doing, want to support you, you can create premium content, paid content, and a percentage of those people are going to go with you. And so with Substack, they say aim for 10%. Other platforms, it's like 3 to 5%. At the moment, 3% of my free subscribers are now converting into paid subscribers. But I launched on Substack a few weeks ago, so that's now catching up. That's kind of rising quite quickly. That will level out. But yeah, so with what I'm doing, I now have companies sponsoring the newsletter. So I have ads. I'm able to drop in affiliate links, and I have a paid subscriber list as well. So there's 3 different types of monetization, and I own those subscribers in terms of the Stripe account, and it's not a Google play. Like, I don't care about search traffic at all. It's a brand play, it's an audience play, and it's very refreshing. And I think there's a lot that could be learned by attempting this, even if it's like you don't consider it could be something completely different to what you're doing building content sites. Just find something that you're most passionate about and see if you can build an audience, because by getting that skill and understand and learning how other people are monetizing their lists by creating paid subscribers, I think is a very valuable skill set that you can then apply to whatever website that you want to build out and hold longer term. So yeah, it's a whole new world. I've learned a lot, and it feels a very natural fit, and I feel stronger than ever. That no one can take away my audience, whereas Google and Amazon can take away your livelihood if you are dependent on them. So
overnight,
yeah, I'd recommend
bananas.
people look into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because like we said, we've known each other for a few years here, and I was like, what is he doing? Like, content is free out there. Everyone's giving it away for free, but it definitely makes it a not valueless, but it's a commodity where people don't really pay attention to it. And
I didn't see the opportunity until just a couple of months ago, and now I see such a huge opportunity. It's ridiculous for so many people. And so with the podcast, what I'm doing now is the first 30 minutes is free for the free RSS feed that everyone gets, and then after that it's for paying subscribers. I saw the Acquired podcast, Acquired.fm, which is to do with venture capital. They were doing that. I've seen a couple of others doing that, and thought, okay, this seems a pretty good way of doing it. You don't have to create additional content. You can just cut up the content that you're already creating and put part of it behind a paywall, and people are subscribing from it. Like I sent a podcast episode on Friday. Directly from that one post, 5 people signed up as paid subscribers. I assume because they wanted to hear the second part of the episode. So yeah, you need to really, content has been seen as free, but I think you can reconceptualize your content as the product going forward, and not having to put out free content all the time in order to sell a course, or in order to sell, training or consultancy or services. The actual content can be the product that people value and will pay for. And yeah, just having done so much research and seen so many examples of people making 5 figures a month just through a newsletter, through a podcast, through building a community. There's so many examples. I have like a massive Trello list, and it's incredibly inspiring. And yeah, a real alternative to the grind, what can be a grind with, churning out new sites. Yeah.
Or, and I'm just thinking like a normal narcissistic person. I'm thinking, oh, how does this apply to me? Of course. But I'm thinking of all the content that I put out, which I enjoy a lot, but I'll say something, which I think it'll be okay. So we're 44 minutes in. YouTube is really weird because there's so many distractions. There's a lot of morons on YouTube that watch like the first 2 minutes of my video, which if you're watching this now, you're not a moron. You're awesome. Thanks for watching. And then the podcast listeners, as you know, they're great. Podcast listeners are so engaged. I mean, I'm one myself and I love podcasts in general. So it totally makes sense. And especially with the fact that there's so much content, if someone actually, pay, how much is a subscription?
Yeah, so I've priced it at $49 a month because the offering that I was leading with was this deals newsletter. So every week I do research across the whole market and I create the best content site deals. That's pretty time intensive and pretty valuable. I get access to deals that other people would have to, pay for membership access or pay for a deposit to get. So, I think a valuable thing. But if I were to do it again, I would have priced it slightly less and have a much higher percentage of paying subscribers to free subscribers. But people who are just doing like podcasts, they typically charge $10 a month. But if you have a look at substack.com/discover, you'll see the top 25 publications. You'll see how many subscribers they have and what they charge in all different types of categories. And it really is possible to get people paying for content that you're probably already putting out. And the beauty with tying everything together into a platform like Substack, and I think Substack is pretty unique, is that your free newsletter promotes your everything kind of drives everything else. So you get free subscribers because you're putting out a good weekly newsletter. because of that, they then receive your podcast episodes, because every post that you publish on Substack, it gets pushed out to the web and it gets pushed out to email. So people can share your newsletter on the web, which is amazing, because normally when you send a newsletter, it gets lost. And people also then receive your audio content, which is just a post where you upload an MP3. It looks exactly the same. And everything just helps everything else. Everything grows everything else. Your email, your newsletter drives your podcast episodes. It's a great platform to be on. And there are plenty of other alternatives as well. But I see a lot of people doing a lot of jointed efforts with, blog content, newsletter, YouTube channel, podcast, different feeds. There's a lot of upside by bringing it all together. And people would be surprised how many people would be happy to support that. And once you kind of focus on one area and bring it all together, it's a lot more easily consumed and visible and obvious to people. And you can demonstrate your value a lot better. So, like, I'm not putting out any more content on my personal site now. Like my personal site, my WordPress site, that's kind of done. So it's interesting. It's really, because I've been SEO guy for up to now, but nothing I'm doing right now going forward is an SEO play with this publication. But you can get these to very sizable, revenue numbers and subscriber numbers. I mean, the top newsletters that I follow, Morning Brew has 2 million subscribers. Last I heard, 20 million revenue. And that's just from advertising. They don't have a paid part to that.
Amazing.
The Hustle newsletter has a paid part called Trends, but these can be really big businesses. And then they're doing nothing more than what you're already currently doing, what I was doing, that I've now repackaged. It's kind of blown my mind that there's this opportunity that was not visible to me, and a lot of other people are not seeing this. But this is.
Well, it's blown. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's so different from what we see, where it's just like pump out content, free content. But unfortunately, everyone's doing that. Well, I guess one thing I want to ask is, it sounds like it's fully integrated. So the email list is all on the same platform with the podcast platform, and you can build your email list, which you own, like the name. So if you thought, hey, I'm going to go to some email service provider and I want to go back to the old model, you could. Is that accurate?
Yeah, one-click export. Like literally, you click a button, it immediately dumps the CSV into your downloads folder. So I mean, there's no waiting, there's no asking. You own the subscriptions in Stripe. You can cancel. Everything would carry on. I'm assuming they're a platform. They support creators. They want to support people. So I'm sure there's a way that you could very easily take everything with you. Yeah, everything's there. So yeah, it hosts your podcast. So I no longer pay for an email provider, or I have no autoresponders. It's very freeing. Feels very free. The only software that I'm paying for now is Substack. I don't need SoundCloud or some podcast hosting or anything else. It's all integrated, and you just unlock so much more value by having such a more concentrated, place to be, and place to be discovered as well, and place to be shared. So everyone that shares a newsletter can find your podcast, can, end up being a paying subscriber. So yeah, it's super cool. Like I had a conversation with Amelia Gardner recently, a couple of days ago about this, and rambled on for a long time and kind of blew her mind, I think. And I think she's going to be considering doing something similar. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this, because you can just you can build a much bigger audience way quicker and make a lot more money. However, we're talking about, buying and selling websites. So let's not get too distracted, but there's a lot that you can learn from this. Yeah. Right. From these new platforms, and also just like considering what you're doing as being a publisher. I think there's a lot that you can learn from that. And so, Zoic ad network, AI-driven platform, considers their customers as publishers. And I don't think as site builders, we typically consider ourselves that way. And so I think you can kind of start to think a little bit differently and a little bit more professionally, and consider what you're doing more as a publisher can lead you into more profitable areas and find other ways of monetizing and treating it as a business.
Definitely.
So yeah.
And I think, it goes hand in hand, I think, because a lot of people like they want to start a side hustle, or like do more. Some people have sites and they're already successful, but they want to, talk about it and be sort of influencers like us.
Hmm.
And I think, there's a lot of different ways to do it. People can focus on whatever platform they want to, but Substack sounds very interesting and much different than what I've heard of in the past. So it's very cool. Where
Yeah.
can people sign up for your free newsletter?
Yeah. So it's it's patey.substack.com. So Patey, but websiteinvesting.co will forward there. So I've got some ideas in terms of names and subdomains going forward. Substack at the moment, they don't have a custom domain that you can use. They used to offer that. I think in some time in the future they will offer that again. Or I'm pretty sure if I can get into the top 25 publications, I'll be able to ask them for that. But it's patey.substack.com or websiteinvesting.co. We'll get you there. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, we will put links to all that stuff. And thanks a lot, Richard, for hanging out with me today. And any, I guess, final parting advice for, perhaps someone who hasn't bought their first site, but maybe they're thinking about it coming up, obviously, in this weird time.
Yeah. Just make sure that you are buying a site where the search traffic is if you're buying for the first time, make sure the search traffic is at least stable, ideally going up. You don't want to be buying a site where search traffic is trending down, because it's way harder to try and reverse that. And potentially maybe there's a reason why it's going down, and maybe you won't even be able to turn that around. So that's the most important one. You need to make sure that that's the case in Google Analytics, and make sure traffic is well spread around. Backlink profile, you can do more to optimize that. And if there are issues there, that can be corrected. Content quality can be upgraded as well. So, yeah, I would say how search traffic is doing, how the traffic is spread across, and whether you have a good feel and vibe with the seller. I think that's the most important thing. Everything else can be corrected, or you can generate upside.
Very cool. Thanks a lot, Richard. Have a great day over there.
Thanks, Doug. Cheers.
Thanks a lot to Richard. Again, go check out his newsletter, sign up for it. You can unsubscribe at any time if you want to. And he has a podcast as well. So definitely check that out. They kind of work hand in hand, and it's all part of the same platform, which if you're listening to this now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So thanks again, and we'll catch you on the next episode.